Hey guys, it's me, Seren. I have so many videos to film. There's so many videos about to go up with me wearing this striped shirt. So during Beach Bake, in the middle of the live stream, all these people start coming in talking about 21 Savage is British. I was like, I have my screens. One of my screens is on a live, and the other one is like on a movie. I was like, so I can't look it up right now. As soon as it was over, I looked it up. So apparently, 21 Savage came to the United States as a legal immigrant, like at age 12, and moved to Atlanta. Has been living there illegally ever since, and he just got arrested by ICE, and they like threatened to deport him to the UK. Some people are saying that originally the claim was that he was born in Dominica, which is like sort of kind of like Puerto Rico a little bit in the sense of it being one of these kind of islands where how do I want to call it? Like the citizenship is like murky, like how Puerto Rico is like considered America, like Dominica is considered like part of like Britain, and so people were saying like, oh, like maybe he was born in like Dominica, which is the original story, and came here, but some people are like, no, he was actually like born in Britain and like in the UK and like raised there until the age of 12 when he came here and illegally moved to Atlanta and like lived there illegally all this time and like adopted this persona. And like a spokesperson for ICE was like, his whole persona is a fake persona. And I'm just like, y'all got me on the side of ICE. 2019 is clearly going to be a wild ass ride. This motherfucking AOC bitch talking about something she want to dismantle ICE. I'm like, obviously we need that shit, clearly, because we have agents walking amongst us everywhere, pretending to be us, just like the motherfucking evil-ass movie that's coming out, Us. Literally, I am living in a nightmare. Like, descendants of American chattel slavery are living in a nightmare where we are just being attacked on all sides and in all directions, in terms of our identity and our ethnic identity and our culture just being attacked. And it's just wild. It's wild. And also, apparently, there's people that knew or that heard about this because people are like going through like old tweets and like old interviews. And there's people that have been saying for years, like 21 Savage is from South London, 21 Savage is from the UK. Like, and I guess people, it's wild. I guess people thought it was a joke. It sounds like a joke. Like, it sounds ridiculous. So I guess maybe people thought that it was like a joke or the whole like, I don't know, honestly. I guess people thought it was a joke. And apparently it was like 100% true and not a joke. What I find to be really interesting is that like my first thought when I saw this, all these people started like talking about it in the live stream, and I was like, what are y'all talking about? And like my first thought when I hear this is like, so nobody knew 21 Savage as a baby. There's like no one in Atlanta that could be like, no friends, no family members that knew him as a child. Like I've weirdly, this is very weird whenever people say this to me, I've weirdly had people say that they don't believe that I'm from DC. And my first thought whenever people say that is, well, I have childhood friends and family members, people that knew me as a child, people that knew me as a little kid, people that knew me as a baby. There's pictures of me, you know, all types of stuff. It can be verified, even though not that it needs to be. It's like a whole weird thing. I don't know. It's like a weird thing for me personally. Like, but it could be verified that I am from Washington, D.C. That's where I'm from. My family has like been here forever. And so my first thought was like, there's nobody that could like verify this. No one has seen him as a child, a small child, a young child, a baby. There's no family, there's no nothing in Atlanta, and that he's gotten this far in a career without people checking. Basically, fact checking is really interesting to me. And I also find that this goes back to what I was talking about in my other video when I was like, people say all the time like gatekeeping, like, well, who are you to gatekeep? Like when Princess Nokia got brought up and someone said to me, well, who are you to gatekeep Princess Nokia's blackness? This is something that was also said to me when I said what I said about Bruno Mars. Oh, you're like looking into this man's background and looking up his family members and his parents. Like, who are you to like gatekeep? When I made that video about Gal Gadot, and I was like, Gal Gadot is fucking white. This is her family background. Her family are white Eastern Europeans that immigrated to Israel and adopted, you know, they converted to Judaism. They're like not like any type of like Jewish people of color or anything like that. And people are like, well, who are you to go like digging into people's past? But like, obviously, you have to dig into people's past a little bit. You have to gatekeep these people because it's just like people have whole motherfucking made up personas for real. And I've also seen, which I have to mention, this argument that's like, well, who cares? It's Atlanta. Atlanta is a transplant city. Atlanta is full of transplants. And I like specifically said to someone about this online, I was like, this is a weird excuse that I feel like I'm seeing more and more, which kind of goes back to this excuse that we've talked about previously on the Black Americans, this idea that there's not a lot of descendants of American chattel slavery here, right? That all the black people here are motherfucking immigrants, that all the black people here are foreign blacks, that we are all transplants in these cities. No, no, no. A lot of us, most of us, the majority of us that are black in this country are not immigrants. We're not foreigners. We're not the children of immigrants. We're not the children of foreigners. We're descendants of American chattel slavery, DACS. We are native-born blacks. We are native sons and daughters of this country, like Richard Wright. So this is such an interesting thing that I see. It's interesting to kind of see the various mental gymnastics and things that are kind of brought up when we start talking about this. Well, none of the black people in this country are like native to this country. Like, we're all, transplants. Like, descendants of American chattel slavery didn't motherfucking choose to be here, though. Like, you coming here as an illegal immigrant at the age of 12 and moving to Atlanta is not the same thing. And it's an interesting thing for me personally because this is something that people have also really started to enjoy saying about Washington, D.C. Well, D.C. is a city of transplants. Nobody is from D.C. It's like there's a lot of people that were in fact born and raised in D.C. D.C. being a predominantly black city for a really long time, like 95% black, that was mostly descendants of American chattel slavery, and a few East Africans as well, Ethiopians and Eritreans and stuff like that. But still, that was like minute. Like the majority of us were descendants of American chattel slavery, descended from people that traveled here during the Great Migration. Like my family traveled here during the Great Migration from North Carolina and has literally been here for almost 100 years, quite literally. So it's very interesting to see people kind of come up with this excuse of like, well, everyone is a transplant. That's just like sort of another line of this, immigrants make America great, we're all immigrants. We're not all immigrants. Number one, that's extremely offensive to indigenous Americans, Native Americans that are definitely not immigrants, and it's also extremely offensive to the descendants of American chattel slavery that are also not immigrants. We did not willingly choose to be here. No, we didn't, right? We did not transplant to any of these cities. Again, many of us have been here for a really long time. And we also see along this similar train of thought, people saying like, well, there's not that many black Americans. Most black people, here in the United States are immigrants or foreign or the children of immigrants. They're only like one generation removed from foreign countries and immigration. And how can anybody sort of track their lineage back? How do you even know? It's not that hard to go back and figure out, well, I can go back to a plantation in South Carolina. I know where my family came from. I can go back to a plantation in North Carolina. I know where my family came from. I can go back to a plantation in Alabama. I know where my family came from. Slavery was only 164, I think. 164 years ago, which is so recent in terms of generationally. I've said previously on this channel, my great-grandmother, who I knew, who died when I was a teenager, her mother was a slave, right? It's right there for us. And I've said this previously in videos when people say like, why can't you guys just get over slavery and let it go? And it's like, well, for us, it's right there. It's around the corner. It's yesterday. It's today. We're still dealing with the ramifications of it. It's also tomorrow. So it's kind of trying to like really pivot and like shift the narrative and kind of like move us out in favor of this immigration, immigrants make America great, black immigrants are the wave, black immigrants are like the true face of black people in this country is wild to witness. And it's very interesting to kind of unpack this through the context of 21 Savage, of all people. And like, it's funny because it's so random. Like, 21 Savage is from the UK, what? But at the same time, it's like scary. Like it's also scary, and it really feels like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which we've talked about on this channel before, as like a metaphor, and like agents walking among us. And like it's funny too because like I just did my Beale Street Katak review, and I mentioned in that video how the majority of the cast, with the exception of Fani, were all descendants of American chattel slavery. And somebody asked me, they were like, "How do you know that?" And I said, I looked it up. And I was like, before I watch a movie or a TV show, or depending on what it is and what I'm looking for out of it, like if Beale Street Katak, an adaptation of a James Baldwin novel that's about a really distinct form of American anti-Black racism, I feel like it's only right that it should have a DACS cast. That's something that's important to me, right? Just like how Catherine Bigelow made a movie called Detroit, which is supposed to be about a specific type of anti-Black racism, but she cast John Boyega, a motherfucking Brit, as the lead. I felt some type of way about it. I didn't go watch it. So I look up, they asked me, how did I know that? And I said, I looked it up. And I've had other people ask me about that type of thing, and I continue to say, like, if I am unsure, I look it up because I want to know. I want to know who these people are. I want to know who I'm supporting. I want to know where they're from. I want to know those things because I've decided that it's important to me as an ethnic, Native Black American, descendant of American chattel slavery. That's something that's important to me. And so I take my motherfucking sweet time and I go look and I go back like, I'm not sure. What's your parents' name? I'm typing that into Google. What's your grandmother's name? What's this person's name? What's that person's name? Especially with the internet, a lot of information becomes readily available. And it's funny because I saw online, somebody went and like looked at 21 Savage's Wikipedia page, which has now already been updated to say like British rapper. And they were like, wow, I just noticed that his page basically starts in 2005. No, there's nothing earlier. There's no mention of like he went to this elementary school or that, because then it's just like, oh yeah, like if he came here at the age of 12, that makes sense. And these are just things that we don't think about and we don't really examine in terms of, again, lineage, which is important now that we're having these conversations about ethnicity and ethnic identity and history and culture and who are we and what is our legacy going to be, which again is the theme for 2019. Right? Fucking fascinating story. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Really interesting to see how this is going to develop. We need ice. Sorry.